Well, it is the morning after some of the best news to hit the 49ers in a while, and they've been getting a lot of it lately. I think that Sean McVay is going to need to lobby the NFL to never play on Thursday night again. They're the Rams holding the number one seed. There's Thursday night football twice this season, punching the one seed away from LA. It was Alfred Collins back on Thursday night in October, over 2 months ago, who was one of the many heroes for the 49ers. That was a Thursday night epic where the skeleton crew for San Francisco beat the Rams at SoFi. And then last night we saw the Seattle Seahawks with ex 49ers, Sam Darnold, Eric Saubert, Clint Kubiak, register the 38-37 win over the Rams. So the 49ers now control their destiny for the one seed. We've got updates on San Francisco. Ricky Pearsall, John Lynch just spoke on KMBR. He said that Ricky is doing all he can to get back on the field. We'll see for Monday night. We certainly haven't ruled him out. We've got the clip from Mike. He was able to cut it up from KMBR. Going to play that in a little bit. We'll also talk about some of the roster decisions that the 49ers are going to have to make. This is going to be a big week of roster decisions. Today is a big day of practice. You know, guys like Sam Okawanu, guys like Tatum Bethune, guys like Eric Kendricks have a chance to play for the 49ers on Monday against the Indianapolis Colts. And their full focus does need to be on Indianapolis. You know, you could talk all you want, and we will. We're going to break down this move up to the number one seed and how unlikely it is for the 49ers, how unlikely it's been to get to this point. And now they've got a, 22% chance to get the one seed, and they have that all in their control with Seattle coming in week 18 to Levi Stadium. So we can break all of that down. But the main focus for the 49ers does need to be on the Colts because they have to take care of their business to capitalize on the window of opportunity that has been blown wide open now, thanks to Thursday night football heroics. First from the 49ers back in week 5, now by the Seattle Seahawks against the Rams. And what are we in now? Week 15, week 16. I think we're already in week 16. Wow. Joe Montana week of the season. Anyway, here's the Lynch update on Ricky Pearsall.
I don't think so. I think, as we've chronicled, he had that PCL injury. I've had one in my career. I've played with guys who've had them. They're tough. They don't go away until you have ample time to rest. And then he had an ankle. Now, on the ankle, that was a tackle that has I think that guy will get fined, and rightly so. That's a technique we've tried to get out of our league. Ricky was extremely tough, came back from the ankle, but then fell on his knee late. So he's just having one of those years. I think we can all see we're better, and we're he's a huge part of our offense. So Ricky's doing everything he can to get back on the field. We'll see for Monday night. Certainly haven't ruled it out. I can tell you he wasn't out there yesterday. He's working hard to try to get back out there, and we'll see where that's at.
Last week, the 49ers put together, I thought, the best approximation of the formula that's going to be needed to make sure that this offense is as elite as required to win a Super Bowl. They had both of their top receivers deliver big games. Ricky Pearsall, despite suffering the hip drop tackle injury on that first play, it's going to be a fine coming in on Saturday toward that tackler. But Ricky Pearsall delivered, and then Juwan Jennings delivered 2 touchdowns in the red zone. And the best way that we could see the 49ers' contributions at receiver in effect was the yards after the catch, the yak room for George Kittle. 89% of George Kittle's receiving yards came after the catch. If you go back to the 2022 49ers, the 23 49ers, hell, just go back even further. Go back anything from 2017 to 2023. It was about yak for San Francisco. Setting up yards after the catch, creating space on the field, and then letting your physical players rumble, take advantage of some of the diminishing tackling capabilities in the National Football League. Starting in 2024, the 49ers had much, much more trouble generating the yak that they've obviously wanted to generate. And the lack of separation was the main culprit. The 49ers ranked number 32 in separation at the time of catch or incompletion. It's an average metric that the NFL Next Gen Stats is able to get from the chips in shoulder pads. And we very clearly could go back to the loss of Brandon Ayuk in week 7 and then the loss of essentially every 49ers player to injury that year. But we very clearly could trace the separation issues back to wide receiver unavailability for San Francisco. This year, they're in the 20s. Again, they've had a lot of problems with availability at the receiver position. Ayuk is obvious. He's not going to be back. Ricky Pearsall was hurt after week 4, despite a good start. That week 4 game against Jacksonville saw him injure the PCL. Juwan Jennings has been playing with 5 broken ribs. Now, I think he's healed now, and you could tell by his play on the field, but he was compromised for a good part of this season. So with a receiver as compromised as it was for the 49ers, separation numbers were again down over the early part of this season, and yak numbers were again down because there's less room on the field, then there's less room to rumble after the catch. That's obvious. You want to space the defense out. For the 49ers offense to be at its best, there has to be room for receivers to rumble after the catch. Purdy is one of the best quarterbacks in football. He could thread a needle with the best of them. But if you truly want explosives, and the 49ers have ranked below average in explosive play rate this year, despite having an overall efficient offense. So they're having to strain for everything that they get. If you want those explosives, you have to create the space. And if you want to create the space, you have to have production from your wide receivers. That's what happened on Sunday against Tennessee. Ricky Pearsall delivered. Juwan Jennings delivered. I think that moving forward, we're going to be tracking the status of Ricky Pearsall very closely because, to me, he's that linchpin of this 49ers offense. You're not getting Brandon Ayuk back, but you can rediscover some of the impact and the efficiency that Ayuk had through a combination of players. And the 2 most obvious candidates are Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings. Neither of those 2 guys is going to be 2023 Brandon Ayuk this year. 2023 Ayuk was awesome, but both of those guys combined, what they did on Sunday, I think was a good illustration of it. They can give the 49ers the type of space-making creativity and space-making ability on the outside that opens things up for George Kittle, that opens things up for Christian McCaffrey. Somebody who didn't really produce all that much statistically in the game against Tennessee was Christian McCaffrey. He actually fell off the 1,000 pace. But I think what they did going to Pearsall, going to Jennings, going to Kittle, what the 49ers did against Tennessee can open the door for McCaffrey to have a big game and get right back on 1,000 pace at Indianapolis. That's the exciting thing about this offense. There are different weapons, many of them. And when one weapon is a little bit more covered, that should open the door for somebody else. It's like a game of whack-a-mole if you're the opposing defense. And then that's why you have to have a really good quarterback to run this offense, because that QB has to determine the right place to go with the football, and that's what Purdy has been doing a really, really good job of as of late. Speaking of Purdy doing a really good job, take a look at this before we start to get into some of the 49ers' big roster decisions. These are the quarterback composite rankings. Look who's number 1. It's been the week of Brock Purdy at the very top of the league. He's finally qualifying again for some of these leaderboards, finally getting enough snaps to be included on them. And this one, SF Data Niners does a good job of combining a lot of the different metrics. On this one, Purdy is number 1. If we only look at QBR, he's number 2 behind Jordan Love. But the top 5 here is Purdy, Love, Prescott, Matthew Stafford, and Drake May. I think that Matthew Stafford, in a way, is an odd man out amongst this 5 because he's not as good when pressured. He's an older quarterback, doesn't move as well. Yesterday, he took that shot to the ribs. He said that he was just going to the blue tent to use the bathroom so he wouldn't have to go to the locker room, but I'm almost certain that Matthew Stafford was lying. He might have gotten a pain injection in the ribs, and that's going to be something to watch moving forward because he did take a shot, and he took some shots from that Seattle defense that finally figured out how to consistently pressure him. They finally were able to get ahead of the sticks. Seattle was. The Rams were ahead of the sticks for 3+ quarters. Once the fourth quarter hit, the Seahawks administered the type of pressure that I thought they were going to administer for most of the game against Stafford, and he just completely fell off a cliff efficiency-wise. Matthew Stafford's rating last night when not pressured was 143.5. Matthew Stafford's rating when pressured on 17 dropbacks was 43.0. So over 100 points lower when he was pressured versus when he wasn't pressured. And I think that the Rams, I mean, a very good team. I think the best offense-defense combination in football, but two major Achilles heels. One is special teams, which let Seattle back in the game, and that's something that the 49ers literally specialize in this year. Two, Matthew Stafford's ability under pressure is something that we haven't seen all too much this year because they've been able to keep him clean for most of the season. But I think January football has its way of putting quarterbacks into that, pun intended, into that pressure cooker. And I don't know if it's going to be kind to Matthew Stafford because the fourth quarter certainly wasn't kind yesterday. They went 5 straight drives without scoring in crunch time where they had a chance to close out the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, this was the ultimate choke job for the Rams last night. 5 straight drives, no points, despite gaining 583 yards of total offense on the game. I mean, they became the first team in NFL history to lose with over 500 yards of total offense and a +3 turnover margin. Teams had been 93-0 in those games. The Rams had 583 yards and a +3 turnover margin, and they somehow lost. So, I mean, that it was a choke job of epic proportions for the Rams. They opened the door with special teams, which is the Achilles heel that we had talked about so often. I find the Rams to be a Walmart version of the 2023 49ers. They're not as good offensively. They're really good. They're not historically good offensively. The quarterback's less mobile. Obviously, Stafford is not as mobile as Purdy. The defense is good, but obviously gave up 38 points yesterday to the Seattle Seahawks. You've got good offense, defense, not great, but then you have a special teams unit that is ready and willing to sink it all, which is what we saw from the Rams yesterday. Anyway, want to go back to the quarterback rankings, want to go back to some of the stats from yesterday, but this is from SF Data Niners. Some of the metrics, overall QBR, you could see Purdy is a little bit behind Jordan Love. He actually doesn't qualify for the ESPN official QBR leaderboard yet, but I think after one more game, Purdy will. EPA per play, Purdy is number 3. Jordan Love is number 1. Completion percentage over expectation, Purdy and Love neck and neck. Purdy also really good as far as lowering his bad throw percentage. Look, Matthew Stafford, you can see him at number 4. I'm going to zoom back in on it because it's really hard to see. This right here, the orange number, Matthew Stafford has a really, really high bad throw percentage, 18.1%, significantly higher than Purdy at 12.6%. Stafford generally good at avoiding sacks because he can get rid of the ball quickly, but I think he also pushes the ball into windows and spots that he shouldn't to avoid pressure, which is why he ranks number 30 near the bottom of the league in bad throw percentage. And that's absolutely something to watch. I mean, I thought the Rams got a little bit fortunate yesterday. I thought twice on the first drive in overtime, Matthew Stafford put the ball in harm's way. There was one where there was I think it was an offsides penalty or an illegal contact penalty that nullified a dropped interception. And then there was the interception that Ernest Jones IV couldn't hang on to in the middle of the field. So Stafford, the media doesn't understand Matthew Stafford. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he has a really strong arm, but a lot of people get so enamored with the arm that it's like watching a guy who can drive 400 yards at the range, but people start picking the guy that can drive 400 yards over the champion of the Masters. And the best quarterbacks in the league are going to have a bad throw rate of less than 18%. I'm sorry. That's way too high for Matthew Stafford. It cost the Rams last night. They went scoreless for 5 straight possessions. He's got everything around him to be successful between McVay, a good offensive line, a good run game, a good set of receivers. I mean, Puka Nacua went crazy last night, yet he still wasn't able to get it done when it mattered most in the fourth quarter. And, a lot of the media is probably going to vote for this guy for MVP, but I think it's really clear that he's not the best quarterback in football. I think it's really clear that he's limited from a mobility standpoint. And I think that it's something that bit the Rams last night and is going to be something to really, really watch moving forward. Anyway, going through this, the pressure to sack ratio for Brock Purdy is where he is truly elite. Look at this. 12%, number one. All these other guys are in the 20s of pressure to sack ratio. Who's number 2 in pressure to sack ratio? Here we go. 16.8% will score. Bo Nix. Hats off to Bo Nix. I mean, for all of his limitations and all the criticism he's taken this year, he has not allowed a lot of pressures to turn into sacks, and I think that's allowed the line to keep moving for the Broncos offense. But Purdy leads the league in pressure to sack ratio. There's the air yard score, and then the overall score is ahead of Jordan Love. So Brock Purdy, number 1 quarterback in the league. If you look at this in the big picture moving forward, the 49ers have a chance to earn the 1 seed by running the table. Maybe the best news coming out of last night is that the Seahawks are a beatable team, and Brock Purdy has already beaten the Seahawks on the road. The Seahawks found a way to sink the Rams while also showing a lot of their own vulnerabilities. They gave up 580 yards of offense to the Rams. And Purdy is going to be more capable than Matthew Stafford of escaping a pass rush. I think, again, so much of the hinge point for the 49ers comes back on Ricky Pearsall in the receiver position. If they can generate the separation necessary, Purdy's going to be able to do what it takes to go toe-to-toe with Sam Darnold. And Pearsall was a big part of the game in week 1, where he beat Reek Woolen down the sideline, and it was like a strike of lightning. Purdy hit him, and that set up the Jake Tonjes touchdown. So you look at how these teams match up, and San Francisco's obviously already won that one game against Seattle. Now, the big difference going into week 18 is that there's no Nick Bosa, there's no Fred Warner anymore, and a 49ers defense that stonewalled Sam Darnold and company back in week 1 is going to have to do so or try to reprise that with a much more limited cast. But that's where the roster moves that I'm talking about here over the next few minutes, that's where those are going to come in. How are the 49ers going to scrounge their way into some sort of defensive efficiency against Seattle come week 18? And first against Indianapolis, that's what they have to focus on right now. And then against the Chicago Bears, how are they going to arrange the deck chairs so they can get just average defensive play so that they can set the table for their offense and for their special teams? And one thing about the matchup that, I was watching the Seahawks last night, they obviously earned a huge leg up on special teams. We saw that advantage coming into the game against the Rams because the Rams have a terrible special teams unit. But what about the matchup with the 49ers on special teams? What if that is just played out to a draw, as I think it will be? Like, the numbers indicate these are the top 2 special teams units in football, the Seahawks and San Francisco. If they can play the special teams out to a draw, then you get much closer to having this as a comparison of 2 quarterbacks, right? Then you get much closer to having Brock Purdy be able to outshine Sam Darnold. Yesterday, Stafford was better than Darnold, obviously, but the Seahawks special teams was better than the Rams, and that set up the equalizer, and then that set up the overtime opportunity and the 2-point conversion from Sam Darnold to Eric Saubert, a pair of ex-49ers. The play was called by Clint Kubiak, a former 49ers assistant coach. I mean, it was a complimentary effort for Seattle. The 49ers, when they head to face the Seahawks in that Week 18 game. And first, we got to talk about the Colts. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I know that the Seahawks played last night. But the 49ers will have the QB advantage because we know that Purdy is better than Sam Darnold. It will be about making sure that that QB advantage can shine on the scoreboard. And that's neutralizing special teams. 49ers equipped to do that. And then finding a way to just play average defense. And that's why we're about to talk about some of these 49ers roster moves. All right, so let's get the 49ers depth chart up. And then let's get to see what John Lynch talked about today on the radio. I'm going to put the defensive side of the depth chart up on the screen because that is where the main questions for the 49ers are. So first, John Lynch said that Sam Okwonu is going to have a good shot to play Monday night. That's nice news for the 49ers. Defensive end, Sam Okwonu, we've got him down here on the depth chart. I just shifted him down for the time being while he was hurt because they didn't put him on injured reserve while he had this high ankle sprain. So if Sam Okwonu can go, then you're looking at least Bryce Huff, Keon White, Cleveland Farrell, and Sam O as your defensive ends. Things get really interesting if Yetur Gross-Matos can go. And John Lynch said that Yetur Gross-Matos is getting closer. Yetur would give you 5 dressed defensive ends, but Yetur has such inside-out versatility that you could also count him as a defensive tackle. And he immediately would be the 49ers' best interior pass rusher. When they lost Yetur, I mean, one could argue that was a very underrated loss for the 49ers earlier this season. Everybody talked about Bosa. Everybody talked about Warner. But you lost an 82nd percentile interior pass rusher in Yetur Gross-Matos, whose practice window has been opened, and it was already open last week. And knock on wood, there hadn't been a setback yet for Yetur Gross-Matos. So if both Sam Okwonu and Yetur Gross-Matos are available, this defensive line looks very different. And the 49ers needed to look different because they were not good enough against the run against the Tennessee Titans. That was I thought the 49ers' worst performance this year against the run. Just given the fact that Tennessee doesn't have much of a passing threat. Cam Ward has been bad this year. Tony Pollard is obviously a good back. He ran very well against the Cleveland Browns the week prior. So you have to take that into consideration as well. The Browns are a really good defense, and they gave up a bunch on the ground to the Titans. But the 49ers are a playoff team, and the Browns aren't. And the 49ers need to figure out how to buckle up and stop the run. And the personnel, I think, is the first key for San Francisco. Guys like Okwonu, I think he's set a decent edge for the 49ers this year, but more than anything, he gives you a little bit more strength in numbers on the edge just to fortify that defensive line, which has been so decimated this year. And a guy like Yetur Gross-Matos, well, I mean, he's an athletic freak. He's somebody who's a great interior rusher, but he does a great job in the mold of Eric Armstead, setting an edge on early downs. And that's the first thing that you need to do as a run defense. Then it's about the linebacker level. And this is where the roster decisions might get really, really interesting. Tatum Bethune might be back from his high ankle sprain. So he would replace Curtis Robinson if he's ready to go. Robinson is filling in for Tatum Bethune at the Mike linebacker spot. But then the 49ers have taken an even bigger swing at upward mobility at linebacker by signing Eric Kendricks, the former All-Pro. And Eric has been working his way back into shape, was dealing with a little bit of calf tightness last week. Eric Kendricks is back out at practice this week. 138 tackles last year for the Cowboys. I got a chance to talk to him in the locker room. Shout out to Hoover High School in Fresno. That's where Eric went yesterday. But we chatted for a bit, and I think he's feeling good. And I think that as soon as he is in the type of condition, both physically and cerebrally, where he's grasping the playbook, he's going to have a chance to be an every down player for the 49ers. He's 33 years old, but he had 138 tackles for Dallas last year. This is still a player with a little bit of juice, and he intentionally waited this season to sign at a time when he could most preserve his body. He didn't want to play all 4 months of the season. He wanted to come in surgically. This could be it for Eric Kendricks. He wanted to come in surgically and strike when the iron was hot. And I think that this could be a perfect opportunity for him to bridge the gap to a potential Fred Warner return in January. And if and when that does happen, if and when Eric Kendricks is out on that field and Tatum Bethune is on that field and the 49ers have Winters, Bethune, Kendricks, I think that the run defense can be a much, much more consistent commodity. One thing that Eric struggled with last year, and this is not surprising since he was a 32-year-old linebacker, but he was not great when it came to pass defense. But he was still a really good run defender for Dallas. And we've talked about the 49ers run defense this year being very, very linebacker dependent. It always is, but they're not overpowering up front. As the linebackers go, so will this run defense. And there have been weeks where it's been really good. There have been weeks when it's been really bad. It's all averaged out right now to the number 14 run defense in the league. They lost about 7 spots with their performance against the Tennessee Titans. The one thing that could keep this 49ers defense stabilized the way that they need it to be stabilized entering January and entering this final 3-game stretch, they face Jonathan Taylor coming up here on Monday night. The one thing that can really, really keep this run defense stabilized is good tackling, solid gap fundamental play from the linebacker position. And whether that comes through Tatum Bethune returning or Eric Kendricks giving them a little bit of a boost or a combination of everything. I mean, that's the way that John Lynch is talking about this. It's a collective effort. I don't know exactly what the percentage is from each contributor are going to be, but they can't have more than 10 missed tackles. They had 11 missed tackles against Tennessee. They had 15 against Cleveland. They've got to cut those numbers back down to early season numbers when it was like 4, 5, 6 missed tackles per game. Against Seattle in week 1, the 49ers only had 3 missed tackles. But that was when Fred Warner and Nick Bosa were all out on the field. So how are they going to collectively strain without their superstars, but with some of these intriguing potential additions coming in? How are the 49ers going to strain to make sure they stay under 10 missed tackles, soundly play the run, and get back into the top 10 of that run defense EPA? It hasn't been nearly as bad as 2024. They've improved a lot in that regard, but it slipped at an alarming rate last week against the Tennessee Titans. So the 49ers have to get that turned around because here, you are playing an Indianapolis Colts team that has Jonathan Taylor, who's one of the best backs in the league. The good news for the 49ers is that the Colts have not been nearly as good in recent weeks offensively ever since their starting quarterback, Daniel Jones, got hurt. Take a look at Indianapolis's rushing success per week. Now, there is a bump back up there at the end, and that was against the Seattle Seahawks. And the Colts, I mean, I think big picture, we have to emphasize that Indianapolis went into Seattle and gave the Seahawks everything they could handle. And that's the same Seahawks team that just beat the Rams at home. But the Daniel Jones injury happened around week 12. That's when he broke his fibula. He then tore his Achilles against Jacksonville. They were a transcendent running team with the passing threat, and they've got Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Tyler Warren, the tight end. They were a transcendent running team when that passing threat with a healthy Daniel Jones was humming along. As soon as Jones got hurt, it went to below average. The league average line is that dotted horizontal line across the whole thing. It was bad against the Chiefs. It was bad against the Texans. It was bad against Jacksonville. Those are all losses, by the way, for Indianapolis. It got better right under league average when they went to Seattle. And the one thing that changed was that the quarterback, the new 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, walked through the door. And even though he might not be able to drive the ball downfield the way that he used to, even though he might have added a few pounds since he last played in the NFL, Phillip Rivers can run an offense. Phillip Rivers knows where to go with the football. A defense has to take him seriously. And when a defense has to take a QB seriously, room to run typically opens up. So where will the 49ers hold the Colts? So the Colts going to be back up here in terms of rushing efficiency? Can the 49ers hold them at average? Are they going to suppress them down here? probably most likely the Colts will be a little bit above average just based on where the 49ers have been against the run over the past week. But maybe some of the personnel returns, maybe some of Robert Saleh's savviness will allow the 49ers to keep Indianapolis at average. And then that opens the door for Brock Purdy to execute as a 6-point favorite for San Francisco in this game. 49ers are favored by a touchdown against the Indianapolis Colts. So it's the run defense that I'm really, really focused on. Now, obviously, the Phillip Rivers storyline is an awesome one. And John Lynch talked a little bit more about that on KMBR today. I wrote about it up on the San Francisco Standard. I mean, it's a quarterback who sat in on all your Zoom meetings down the stretch of 2022, who's now playing against you in an important game. The stakes just went up. The 49ers are on track for a 1 seed. One of the miracles of the season. I mentioned it last night. Just imagine the 49ers level of injury decimation on any of these other teams. So just start with their NFC West rivals. Imagine how the Rams would be doing if they had lost Stafford for 8 games, if they had lost Puka Nacua for the season. 49ers haven't had Brandon Ayuk. What if they lost Devontae Adams for most of the season? They just lost the game without him yesterday. What if they didn't have Nate Landman, their top linebacker? What if they didn't have Jared Verse? And I think the 49ers have actually lost more than that on defense because Fred Warner is probably worth 3 or 4 players. But you get the picture. If the Rams would have had all those injuries, they wouldn't be in position to essentially lock up their 1 seed last night. They blew that opportunity anyway. But what the 49ers have been able to do without Purdy, without Ayuk, without Ricky Pearsall, without George Kittle for a lot of this. I mean, without Nick Bosa, without Fred Warner, with all these injuries, the fact that the 49ers are in position to win out and grab the 1 seed is truly, truly staggering. So anyway, those are some of the roster decisions. I could go back to the depth chart one more time for the 49ers. You got Bethune, if he comes back, obviously the Mike linebacker. But then I do wonder if Eric Kendricks is integrated in. Is he going to be the Sam? Right now, Nick Martin is still in the concussion protocol. That's starting to be a little alarming to me because he's had the whole bye week. He suffered the concussion against Cleveland, but he's still showing some symptoms. So, Nick, we hope and pray that Nick Martin can get back on the field soon. Concussions should be no joke. And we've talked about Nick Martin and the Sam linebacker experiment and how, maybe the 49ers can get a boost from him down the stretch. But if he's in the concussion protocol, we can't really seriously discuss that right now. So Martin, probably a project for next season, as long as he's on the shelf. But maybe Eric Kendricks takes over the Sam linebacker spot first and plays the run for the 49ers on some of those base downs, coming with that 138 tackle resume from last season. I think D. Winters has been playing better football. I just really think that you have 2 guys potentially returning to the field here in Bethune and Eric Kendricks that can give the 49ers an immediate boost. At defensive line, I forgot to mention Jordan Elliott, a defensive tackle. He got hurt in the locker room stretching before the 49ers played the Titans, so he didn't play in that game. But Elliott was working off on the side yesterday, no brace, nothing. I think he's going to be back for the 49ers this week. That 45 is defensive tackle. Yetur Gross-Matos might further fortify defensive tackle. Obviously, Sam Okawanu is probably trending toward playing for the 49ers this week. That helps the defensive line. You're trying to mix and match and find as much efficiency as you possibly can out of the weapons and the players that you do have to find a way. And I've got a couple of these graphs. This is the team tier chart. This is the whole season chart for the 49ers. You're just trying to find a way to move this defense up as much as possible. Offense to the right, defense up. And I think the 49ers are generally succeeding in that goal. Let me show you this. This is ever since Brock Purdy took over as quarterback. Look how much this has changed. This is since week 11. So over the past 4 games for the 49ers and over the course of the past 5+ weeks in the NFL, San Francisco's defense has been above average. Their offense has been elite. It's been in the top 5 of the league. And now the question for the 49ers is, can they maintain average defensive play even as the competition improves as far as which offenses they're facing? Because the Colts are going to be a better offense than the Tennessee Titans and the Cleveland Browns and the teams the 49ers have played recently. The Chicago Bears can really run the football. I don't think it's a great offense because Caleb Williams is such a limited quarterback. But the Seahawks, even though they've been struggling offensively in general yesterday, was a little bit better, especially at crunch time. Unquestionably, the next 3 games are going to be tougher for the 49ers defense than the previous 4. So can the defense for the 49ers keep the height on this graph? Can they stay above the average line? Because if they can, then you just set the offense to blow this thing up and go home. And the offense is really damn good. They've got the number 1 quarterback in football this year, efficiency-wise, in Brock Purdy. They've got weapons. The offense is healthy. And then they have the great trump card, which is the special teams unit, which is not on this XY graph. But the 49ers are right there. They're right there with the Rams. They're right there with the Patriots, the Bills, the Packers, the Broncos. Look at Jacksonville up here in the top tier, playing really, really good opportunistic defense. They beat the 49ers back in week 4. Why not the 49ers, given how good they've been over the past month? And you know what? Before people say, well, they haven't played great offenses over the past month, they've played great offenses this season, and they're 10-4 with the 1 seed being in clear shot after massive wins over the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks in weeks 5 and 1, respectively. Maybe I should have said that the other way around. The Seahawks and the Rams in weeks 1 and 5, respectively. The 49ers have played the 4th hardest schedule in all of football. It's just that the last 4 weeks have been a little bit easier for the defense, but I think that it all works out perfectly for San Francisco, because after that Rams game in week 10, where the Rams dropped 42 on the 49ers, the defense, I think, really needed a softer landing. Defense needed to rebuild some confidence because it's a young unit. It's an injured unit. They're trying to install stuff. They're trying to figure out their mojo. I think they've done that over the past 4 weeks. Those have been the training grounds, and now the playoffs start for the 49ers. Now you've got the Colts with the veteran, a savvy guy, and Phillip Rivers, Grandpa Phillip Rivers, 44 years old. You've got the Bears and Ben Johnson, who's one of the best play callers in the game. And then, that was big for Sam Darnold last night. I think that he's got some mojo moving forward. There were all the questions about Sam being able to win in that pressure-packed situation, and I think the questions grew even louder over the course of the second half of that game. But Sam ended up answering the questions in overtime with that drive. He's going to be a challenge in Week 18. I mean, the 49ers defense has had the training wheels on here over the last 4 weeks. Now they can take them off. Maybe they could even get Fred Warner back at some point in January, but that's a little bit too far down the road to worry about right now. How do they attack these next 3 games? They don't have to be great. They don't even have to be good. Can they be average over the next 3 games to set the table for Brock Purdy and the 49ers special teams unit? That is the challenge for San Francisco's defense. Mike is asking me, what's the plan at left guard? Well, we'll see today at practice, won't we? We'll see if Spencer Burford is back out there. And if Burford's not out there, we'll see if Connor Colby is taking some of those snaps at left guard. I think that Burford is going to be ready this week. I personally, that's the vibe that I'm getting from the 49ers. But today's a big day, unquestionably. It's like the Thursday of the week because they're pushing everything back due to Monday Night Football. So they practice Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Normally it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's that Thursday practice that determines a lot of availability. So left guard is a big question mark, but I think that one might be answered positively for the 49ers because Spencer Burford did come out of that game better than they had feared. No high ankle sprain. Mike is saying he thinks if Burford is out, the 49ers might go to Matt Hennessy instead of Connor Colby. Well, I'll let you guys know after practice today how the 49ers are lining up at left guard if Spencer's not there, because today is the big bellwether day. This is what I've been waiting for. Hennessy played well in Jake Brendel's absence earlier this season at center. Hennessy has played left guard at a high level in this league. He played an entire season, graded out well for the Atlanta Falcons a few seasons ago. You could also call up Nick Zakelj from the practice squad to be the backup center if that is the case. Because the one thing, if you do use Hennessy at guard or as backup guard, or just playing guard, if he gets hurt, then you don't have a backup center. If you don't have a backup center and Jake Brendel gets hurt, you're completely screwed. So you need to call up Nick Zakelj from the practice squad so he could be in that backup center role. That's a very, very important one to have locked down. All right, I'm ready to answer some questions. Let's go. Heading into that chat section about 40 minutes into the show. Now, Colby did play 9 snaps last week while they were tending to Spencer Burford. So that's definitely something to note. I thought he looked better than he did early in the season, but it's a whole different thing if you're coming in and starting a game versus entering a game just as a replacement for about 9 or 10 snaps. The best question that I've seen so far: can Matthew Stafford win without his Avengers? 0-1 without Devontae Adams. I think Matthew Stafford is a product of his weapons. He definitely is a product of pass protection and Sean McVay protecting the pocket for the quarterback with his play calling. Stafford has faced the second least amount of pressure in the entire league this year. Again, his rating dropped over 100 points. Pressure versus no pressure. Yeah, it's like Jared Goff on steroids for Matthew Stafford. He's obviously better than Goff, but the difference in these two quarterbacks between when they're pressured and when they're not is immense. I don't know if the 49ers have the ability to pressure Matthew Stafford in a way to make him fold like he did down the stretch against Seattle yesterday. The 49ers have a league low 16 sacks, but the Rams won't have to beat just the 49ers to win a Super Bowl this year. They're going to have to probably find a way through Seattle, who figured something out down the stretch. And there are other defenses that can deliver pressure, especially at a much higher rate than the 49ers, that Matthew Stafford would have to deal with. And he did not adequately deal with it yesterday, a rating of only 43 when under pressure. Mike mentioned that TJ Houshmandzadeh, Brandon Ayuk's receiver coach, who has typically, as expected, taken Brandon Ayuk's side in everything. Like, I mean, you would expect him to be in Brandon Ayuk's camp. It seems that TJ Houshmandzadeh has defected. And he was on 95.7 the game, and he said, I don't understand it. I'll tell you one thing. When Brandon gets my age, he'll regret it. I don't believe it's a smart decision, but hey, some people like the game and others love it. He also said that anybody who gives Brandon Ayuk frontline money, they're liable to be fired. You can't. Look at what he just did. Wow. So TJ Houshmandzadeh doesn't see anybody offering Ayuk another big contract anytime soon. The fact that TJ Houshmandzadeh is publicly taking this stance now, I think should tell you everything that you need to know. And there are a lot of people trying to make this conspiratorial. Kyle Shanahan said that Brandon Ayuk had been extremely distant ever since the week 7 injury of 2024. And then obviously we heard some reports that, and we saw Brandon Ayuk out on the field at training camp this year, early in this season, where it appeared that he wasn't very distant. I mean, I think some of the media just needs to use their brains and connect the dots. The 49ers voided Brandon Ayuk's guarantees because of missed rehab sessions in the summer. That happened, the voiding happened in July. So obviously there was some distance from Brandon Ayuk that caused his guarantees to be voided. A lot of money was voided in July. It would stand to reason that Brandon Ayuk would put some sort of effort in to try to get those guarantees back. So maybe that's why Brandon Ayuk was on, supposedly, at least visibly to the outside, his best behavior from July to about September or October. We saw Ayuk running out on the practice field. We saw him rehabbing. The 49ers were talking about how much he was rehabbing. It might have been an effort from Brandon Ayuk to try to save those guarantees, to try to give the 49ers to bring those back into the fold. Then, as soon as the 49ers did not renew those guarantees, Brandon Ayuk might have pieced out. That's speculation, and that's my theory. But two ideas can coexist. Brandon Ayuk could have been very distant ever since the ACL tear in week 7 of 2024. And he could have also reinserted himself into the fold to try to get the guarantees back. He could also be really pissed off that the 49ers didn't give the guarantees back, and that's why he could be gone. And then the 49ers didn't do anything wrong in this whole situation. Ayuk has proven to be a cancerous presence in any sort of business negotiation. I mean, it's leading up into the contract, after the contract, the whole shorts incident on the field, but then he didn't even fight the voiding of the guarantees at the time. The statute of limitations passed on that, probably because he was so clearly in the wrong. You have to show up to your rehab appointments if you want to honor your contract. And the 49ers, given the frustration with Brandon Ayuk in 2024, he should have been on every single P and Q after signing that contract. Because a team should always protect itself. A business must protect itself. And that's exactly what the 49ers did. They found a violation of the contract, a clear, flagrant violation of the contract. They fired a warning shot to Brandon Ayuk, and they said, hey, we're going to void these guarantees because you are not following the contract. He might have tried to get those guarantees back performatively for the 49ers over the course of a couple months, but they said, no, you've already violated the contract. You already pissed us off enough in 2024. You're not getting those guarantees back. You're under team control. You can come back and play. Ball's in your court. Brandon Ayuk said no. 49ers shut him down. The 49ers can theoretically keep Brandon Ayuk under contract through 2028, and I don't even know if he wants to play football based on what TJ Houshmandzadeh said, but the 49ers can end his career if they want to. Like, the 49ers can say, we're just going to keep you on the left squad list since you don't want to play, and you can't sign with anyone else because you're under contract through 2028. If they really want to send a message, not just to Brandon Ayuk, but to anyone else who might sign with them, the 49ers could just sit on this situation and really force an issue. Ayuk can return from the left squad list next year and show up at the facility and maybe force the 49ers to move him by, I don't even know how this would play out, but he could show up so he's not on the left squad list, and he could start putting in some effort. And if the 49ers don't want him there, then they would have to move him, because you couldn't. Right now, it's a situation where he's under contract, but the 49ers don't have to pay him. It is ultimate power for San Francisco right now. And until, they're not really incentivized at this point, especially if they're not going to get anything in return from another team for Brandon Ayuk in a trade. If he's not going to work on amending his contract to facilitate a trade, they're not incentivized to do anything. Their one incentive over the past couple of months has been to force enough of an issue so they don't have to pay Brandon Ayuk in 2025. And the 49ers already did that. They put him on the left squad list. He had 5 days to report. He didn't. They don't have to pay him. They can recoup 2025 money. They have the leverage of having him under contract now through 2028, whether it's just for vindictive reasons or whether it's for football reasons. They could keep him under contract through 2028 tethered to the 49ers. And the ball will remain in Brandon Ayuk's court. It's just not going to be passed back this season. That's for sure. I have no idea what kind of headspace, what kind of mentality Brandon Ayuk is in right now. We might be getting hints through somebody like TJ Houshmandzadeh, his receivers coach, when he's saying stuff like, you can't pay this guy a lot of money because he's going to burn you. He doesn't really love football. That's what TJ Houshmandzadeh is implying. I don't know how close of a line of contact he currently has to Brandon Ayuk, but I mean, every single data point suggests and points in one direction, that this is one person's fault. It's not one team's fault. That this is Brandon Ayuk's fault for not living up to his contract. The problem is, even if Ayuk decided to come back right now, it's over for this season. He's ineligible to return in 2025. When the 49ers put him on the reserve left squad list, he had 5 days to report to the team. The 5 days expired, and by rule, he is done for this season. The 49ers will only get a pick for Brandon Ayuk if he works with them to facilitate a trade, because there is no team out there that would want to trade for the contract as is. So Ayuk would have to amend the contract so he could be traded. And if he's not even picking up his phone, if he hasn't been heard from in over a month, that's not going to happen. So right now, I think the 49ers probably are most incentivized to just sit on this contract because they're not paying it, and they don't have to pay it as long as Ayuk is in violation, in breach of contract. Keep him under team control, and then don't have to face the dead money hit if you're the 49ers. All the money is still staved off into the future. The money that you've paid Brandon Ayuk that is prorated into future years will not accelerate to hit the salary cap now until he leaves the team. So you can sit there and have that contract stiff-armed into the future and stay without financial penalty right now just by keeping him on the team. And he's not a distraction because he's away from the team now. It's a bizarre situation. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this, but just warning you guys that Brandon Ayuk might be around in name for quite a while, just because of the dynamics here and the fact that the 49ers really don't seem incentivized to move on from him anytime soon right now, given the fact that they're not paying him anyway. The 49ers need to focus on the guys in their building. That's why I haven't been talking all too much about Brandon Ayuk. They've got the Colts on Monday, a chance to go to 11-4, a chance to, I mean, they've already defied so many odds and so many expectations this year. It has been a fantastic 49ers story, one for the ages if they can get this done as far as securing a 1 seed and then give themselves a chance in the playoffs. I mean, I said it yesterday. If you win on Monday in Indianapolis, all you have to do is win 5 games at home and you're a Super Bowl champion, because the Super Bowl's at home too for the 49ers. So the fact that we're sitting here discussing the 49ers being in this position, the mathematical chances are like 22, 23% for the 1 seed. The fact that the chances for the 1 seed are above 0% after losing Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Michael Williams, Brock Purdy for 8 games, it is absurd. Despite the fact that Brandon Ayuk never showed up to play this year, it is crazy. The NFC West is stronger than it's ever been. Like, this is the year of the strongest division, maybe in NFL history. The Seahawks and the Rams entering yesterday's game were both top 5 DVOA teams in NFL history ever since DVOA had been charted through 15 weeks of this season. Both of them obviously over 10 wins. And the 49ers in their decimated state this year, placed into one of the hardest divisions of all time, have a chance on December 19th. We're speaking on December 19th, have a chance to win the division and win the 1 seed, controlling their own destiny. Like in any other year, in any other situation, if you just gave me those variables, if you said, hey, the NFC West has 2 of the best teams of all time in terms of efficiency through the first 3+ months of the season, and the 49ers have this many injuries, you would say, okay, well, it's going to be a 4-13 team season for the 49ers. Maybe a 6-11 season again for the 49ers. Pack it up for next year. It's the Seahawks and the Rams division, right? Pack it up for next year. No. Despite all of that, the 49ers, all they have to do is win out 3 games. They might be favored in all 3. I think they're going to be favored in at least 2, Indianapolis and Chicago, and they could win that division. They could be the number 1 seed, and then they have the Super Bowl at home. It is captivating theater. Absolutely captivating theater. It is absolute cinema, as we said last night. I mean, speaking of absolute cinema, let's get this up on the screen here. This is what it is. And I have to hide the text title. This is the good encapsulation of the 49ers season. All right, couple more questions. Let's go. Of course, the 49ers might not need the number 1 seed to reach the Super Bowl. I suppose that's a nice fallback thought, but they would tremendously benefit from that seed because number 1 seeds have a clear path to the Super Bowl, and anything below number 1 doesn't really have a clear path to the Super Bowl. The number 1 seed gets an automatic win. An automatic playoff win is worth a lot. So it's buy 3, get 1 free if you're the 49ers right now. If you win the next 3 games, you've essentially won 4 because you've won the wild card round of the playoffs as well. So every single game that the 49ers play over the course of the next 3 weeks carries an outsized importance because it could mean a playoff win. You could consider it a third of a playoff win. You could win a third of a playoff game on Monday in Indy. You could win the second third on December 28th against the Bears. You could win the final third on January 4th against the Seattle Seahawks. It is one of the clearest paths ever, yeah. And you also have to thank the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix and the Broncos, for beating the Green Bay Packers. That was massive for San Francisco as well. So top of the show, we talked about Ricky Pearsall returning for San Francisco potentially on Monday. John Lynch mentioned it. Let's listen in one more time to Lynch on KMBR.
I don't think so. I think, as we've chronicled, he had that PCL injury. I've had one in my career. I've played with guys who've had them. They're tough. They don't go away until you have ample time to rest. And then he had an ankle. Now, on the ankle, that was a tackle that has I think that guy will get fined, and rightly so. That's a technique we've tried to get out of our league. Ricky was extremely tough, came back from the ankle, but then fell on his knee late. So he's just having one of those years. I think we can all see we're better, and we're he's a huge part of our offense. So Ricky's doing everything he can to get back on the field. We'll see for Monday night. Certainly haven't ruled it out. I can tell you he wasn't out there yesterday. He's working hard to try to get back out there, and we'll see where that's at.
Ricky Pearsall, I think at the hinge point for the 49ers. What a spot they're in. It's going to be a lot of fun. Big day today. I'm going to head down to the facility. We'll have the helmet update for you. 49ers defense could look very different personnel-wise on Monday night, and today is probably going to answer many of our questions in that regard. So make sure that you tune in a little bit later. We are quickly approaching 100,000 subscribers, so I would love for everybody to hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and check out the San Francisco Standard as well. links all over the place. Got the latest article on Phillip Rivers, from lurking on 49ers Zoom meetings to playing the 49ers in a massive game. San Francisco has a shot at that 1 seed, a shot at the clear Super Bowl path. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great morning.